All right, welcome. I'm Councilman Kevin Nakan, District 1, and also LCG Chairman, along with Lafayette Parish Association, Fire Association President, Mr. Brian Champagne, who represents the town of Broussard. We're going to be going over the proposal for the upcoming December 8th rural district fire millage that's being proposed. And we'll be going over this presentation, but meantime, I'd like to educate the folks. And first off, the only people that will be voting on this issue is the unincorporated areas of the parish only. That is very important to note, that this is for the rural area fire district, unincorporated areas only, that will be voting on this issue December 8th. How did we even get to this point? Well, let me give you some history. Prior to consolidation, the police jury system at the time negotiated fire protection service for the parish through intergovernmental agreements. So those were contracts that were given to Scott, Dusson, Carencro, Broussard, Youngsville, Judice, and Milton to help serve the parish, the rural area. Through time, that same type of business has been conducted, where the parish general fund would be funding those volunteer fire departments, and that's what consists of your Lafayette Parish fire rating. So it takes all of these departments here to make up your Lafayette Parish fire rating class, from Broussard, Carencro, Dusson, Scott, Youngsville, Judice, Milton, and also the city of Lafayette helps respond. So currently where we stand as a parish, we stand at a class 5. We've been at a class 5 since 2003. As time has evolved through annexation, through state mandates, our parish general fund revenue has shrunk. Sales tax revenue has shrunk to the point that as time has moved from 2003 to where we at, cuts have been made to the volunteer fire departments because the parish has to balance a budget every year. And fire protection is not a mandate. Lafayette Parish government does not have to fund these volunteers. It's not a state mandate. We do it to protect our citizens in the unincorporated area and to have the quality of life that we do have. We've been fortunate that we've been able to do that. Unlike the municipalities in the city of Lafayette, their general fund is very healthy, because through annexation, they have grabbed the business that produce sales tax revenue. So when you have a healthy sales tax revenue coming in, you don't need a dedicated millage. You have all the funding you need because the businesses are producing enough revenue, okay? So the downside to the unincorporated area is that we don't have the businesses that the municipalities have and the city has. Therefore, sales tax revenue has been steadily declining. Okay, so it puts a strain on parish government to fund the fire protection. Okay, so again, your class rating is a 5, and the people only in the unincorporated areas will be voting on December 8th. Here's the departments that make up your parish fire protection. Lafayette Fire Department, 13 stations, Broussard 3, Carencro 2, Dusson 2, Scott 2, Youngsville 1, Judice, and Milton. Judice has 1, Milton has 2. But the only true parish fire protection departments that you have is solely volunteer, where they don't belong in a municipality or a city, is Judice and Milton. Judice has 1 fire station, Milton has 2. So you have 3 rural parish fire stations that are helping serve the unincorporated area, along with the help of the volunteers. So the municipalities have fire stations that protect their municipality. And on the flip side, they have separate equipment, separate trucks that respond only to the unincorporated area. So they keep separate books. The issues we're having is that when those towns start coming serve the unincorporated area, they're leaving their own town wide open and exposed. Not to mention, at the end of the year, they're digging into their own revenue to help offset what we're not able to pay them. So typically, you know, City of Scott can't spend their money in the unincorporated area. No different than anybody else. And we can't spend City of Lafayette money in the rural area. That's why it's all paid through the general fund. But each one of these departments have their own responsibility to their town. That comes first. Then it's the parish. And all the equipment that we have belongs to the parish. It's stored in these municipalities because the parish can't afford to go out and have their own fire station and keep all the equipment there. So we work together as a unit. But when they respond to a fire, it is strictly Scott bringing their equipment, Karen Crow, Bruce, they're bringing the parish equipment out to fight the fires. But that's what makes up your parish fire rating association. Property Insurance Association of Louisiana, I call them PIL. This company is what mandates what you need in order to keep your rating. You don't follow their rules, you go to a class 10. So all of the things that Brian and all of the Lafayette Parish Fire Association chiefs have been fighting is that every year, every 5 years, this company comes in and they rate you. And that's who is in charge of the insurance rates. You don't have another carrier, you don't have another choice. You play by their rules or you go to a class 10. So we're mandated to follow certain things that they require. Here is your rating. Best rating is a 1. Worst class rating is a 10. The parish right now is at a 5. Really a 6, because I'll explain later. Lafayette citizens enjoy a class 2. So the lower the number, the cheaper your homeowner's insurance. The higher the number, class rating, the more your homeowner's insurance increases, okay? And people will tell you, well, my insurance increases every year no matter what. It probably does in all cases, but it's not increasing because of the fire rating. Moving forward, you're going to see an increase, but it's going to be due to the fire rating, you know? So insurance goes up every year, but it has never gone up because of your fire class. Now it's going to go up because of your fire class rating. That's the point scale. So in 2013, we got audited. They came in, they looked at everything. So you receive certain points for handling fire alarms. So out of 10 points, we got 5.79. Not too bad. Total credit for fire department, out of 50 points, we only had 21.9. That's not good. Total credit for water supply, out of 40, we only got 19. Those that are watching and listening, in the unincorporated areas, you do not have fire hydrants that is designed for fire trucks or for the fire department to tap into and put out the fire. Those are for Water District North, Water District South. They basically provide the fire hydrant just for testing, and it's for the water supply going to the subdivisions. So if they were to hook onto this thing, it would bust all the water lines throughout the subdivisions because it's not designed for that. Why? Good question. Call Water District South, Water District North. They're in charge of the water. They're the ones that put the fire hydrants. So how do we rely on water supply in the unincorporated area? We rely on tanker trucks. What? We in 2018, we still, a tanker truck? Yes. The tanker trucks that we do have are over 20 years old. Repairs, they're breaking down constantly. So the volunteers are trying to serve our people with broken water tanker trucks, and we need more of them. So that's why your water supply, out of 40, we only got 19.10. The divergence is a number that they take into consideration all of the following above. So you can't have the best water supply and bad fire protection and get a good rating. You have to have a combination of both. That's what the divergence is. So in 2013, they gave us a 46 points. Let me back up, 46. So in 2013, we got rated a class 6. So from 2003 to 2013, we held on to a 5 until they came in. At the last minute, the Lafayette Fire Parish Association talked to the rating agency, and said, what can we do to save our constituents and our people in the parish a Class 5? They said, if you buy X amount of CBs and radios, along with some other things, we can possibly get you just into a 5 and get you out of a 6. So the parish council and myself and several others found $25,000, and we were able to purchase the radios. We contacted PIL, and then they came in and said, okay, you're good for 50.85. You keep your Class 5. In 2013, as a councilman, I saw this coming, and myself and several other council members tried to do something then, and it didn't get to the voters then. We knew we had to do something. Something was not going to be good. 2003 all the way to 2013, we skated by. Meantime, the parish budget kept getting shorter and shorter, so there was no revenue or anything that we could put back into them. We did what we could, and then we had to balance a budget, so we had to make the cuts. But at the end of the day, we held on till 5 in 2013. Here's the history of the parish credit. 2003, your alarms were 7.9, then it dips in 2008. And in 2013, it dipped again all the way down to 5.79. They came back, did a retrograde, made some changes. We got 8.92. Fire department is steadily declining, 25% to 23 to 21, and we retrograde, got to 22. So as you can see, this slide is just showing you how we have steadily decreased, and we haven't done anything to improve it. Water went from 18.62. We bought a tanker truck at some point along the line, and we kind of got back up into the 19. Divergence, as you can see, steadily going the opposite way. So your total, you'll see 51 points, 50 points, then 46. Then we buy the radios, and we had 50.85. So the moral story is each one of these departments, what they do does affect the parish fire rating. Okay, so if you have a fire department that is struggling to get volunteers and responds, it does hurt that rating. It does hurt the points because they look at all of them as a whole. And if one is slacking but the other ones are doing good, it can bring it down. So it's very important that moving forward, should this pass, that we have to have efficiency, and we have to make sure that every department is doing what they need to do to follow PIL. In 2013, they came in with recommendations. Okay, 2013, we need to increase the number of personnel. We need to have an addition of 4 service truck locations. Add 15 stations in Unincorporated. Well, that's pie in the sky. That's not what we're asking, and that's not what's going to happen. There's probably only one parish fire station you'll need somewhere in the rural area between Scott, Austin, in that area right there. Increased training. Well, it's hard to increase training when you're struggling to get volunteers. So when you do get a volunteer, they got to go show up for a fire. They don't have the time for the training. Increase on duty personnel. Conduct pre-plans in the rural area. Inspecting and maintaining each fire hydrant semi-annually and document the results. Expanding public fire control, investigations, prevention to the fire district. So all of these things were recommendations. They said we're coming back in 2018. That's 5 years from now. We didn't do anything from these recommendations. Absolutely nothing. Why? There was no money to do any of this. We don't have the money for personnel because, again, this is coming out of the parish sales tax revenue / general fund, and there is not enough revenue to do that. On top of that, we're getting hit with state mandates to run the parish courthouse operations and jail, which is in the tune of $8.5 million. So when you're only bringing in 12 and you're mandated for 8.5 to 8, you're left with about 2 to 3 million. And by the time you pay your bills, even after paying them, what we can pay them, we're down to $126,000 in the parish. So there was no way we could do any of these things. So we didn't do anything. So we faced the challenge that we are here today. So the question is, what is 10 mills equal? If it passes, what is the 10 mill property, 10 mills going to cost me at the end of the year? How much in taxes am I going to pay versus what potentially my insurance can be? So here's a slide that breaks it down, and this slide came from the tax assessor's office. verified with Lori Toops. This is not made up by the association or the council. This is coming straight from the tax assessor's office. So in Lafayette Parish, you have a homestead exempt up to $75,000. So in this case, I will use my personal information. My house was assessed after homestead exemption was credited around $272,000. So if you have a home in the unincorporated area and is assessed around $250 to $350, you're looking at $14.58 a month, or $175 a year, $22.92, or $275 a year. So for me, I'm looking at better response, dedicated fire protection, money that's only going to be spent for the unincorporated areas, cannot be spent anywhere else. It has to be served for us, cannot go anywhere else. So for me, I'm going to fall between the $175 and $275 a year, not a month, a year. So I'm somewhere around $250, $225. What's the flip side of that? Flip side of that, this is an example of what potentially the insurance, your up or your increase or your decrease can go to. In my case, when I ran my insurance premium, I called my company, Thompson Leach and Smith. ASI is the name of the insurance company I have. I basically called my agent and I said, listen, don't change my wind and hail coverage. Don't play with my policy. I'm not changing deductibles, because you can manipulate an insurance policy a bunch. You can lower your wind and hail coverage. You can decrease coverage. You could do a lot of things. Well, I value my home and I value my personal belongings, so I want the best coverage, and I don't want to change anything. I just wanted to change my class from that 5 to a 6. And if we don't do anything and this doesn't pass, potentially could be a 7. So I'm looking at 5. If it goes to 6, 11% increase. To a 7, a 21% increase. But if this passes and we implement the things that need to be done, then you fall down to class 4, and that's where the goal is for the unincorporated area. We want to have the same quality of life and same fire protection and class rating as the other small towns in the city of Lafayette. And I think we can get to a 4. If we get to a 4, then we have a 32% cost savings potentially on our homeowners, which makes it a lot more affordable living in unincorporated areas, without a doubt. So, again, in my case, pay $250 to $225 like it was a year, versus when I go from a 5 to a 6, I'm going from $3,100 a year to $4,500 a year, or right at $5,000. So about a $1,500 to $2,000 increase. If it goes to 7, then my insurance goes from the $3,100 to $7,500. So that's a $4,000 increase. So from a 5 to a 6, I'm going to pay anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 more a year, give or take. Go from a 6 to a 7, I'm going to pay an additional $1,500 to $2,000. So my choice is pay $225 a year to have fire protection one time a year for life, or pay an increase in your homeowner's insurance for life. Because as long as you plan on living and having a house, you're going to have homeowner's insurance. Okay? So if you're watching, like I said, this is a guide. Everybody's insurance is different. So basically, the best thing to do if you're watching is take what you're currently paying now and multiply that times 11%, or multiply it times 21%. On a class 4, subtract what you're paying now times 32%. That's the best way for you to get an average of what your insurance could go to versus what you're going to pay in a tax. Okay? This part right here is it's around $50,000 per apparatus for the fire truck. And here is the cost of outfitting a firefighter. The gear is around $2,500. That's including the coat and pants. You have a helmet of $270. Boots are $300. The Nomax hood, $95. Gloves, $65. Safety vest, $35. Pager, $560. and a radio, $3,200. So around $7,000 per firefighter. And that's just to outfit them. In 2016 and 17, LCG made some budget cuts. The only ones that did not get cut was Judy's, Milton, and Dusson. But Broussard, Carencro, and Youngsville all took a 36% cut. Scott, at the time, took a 62% cut. We also took away their assistance of $140,000, and that was split amongst the department. And every year, $80,000 would be rotated for them to be able to put down for future equipment or a truck or put a down payment on something. So, and the other thing to keep in mind that in the past, the parish used to pay for medical calls as well. We have eliminated that. So moving forward, everything is going to be strictly fire calls, not medical calls. They can choose to go on a medical call if they want. They're just not going to get reimbursed from LCG. They're not going to get reimbursed from the parish. So we're not saying that you lose the medical assistance. If those departments want to go on a medical call, they can. They just know up front they're not going to get reimbursed for that call, because we want to strictly handle the fire protection, because that's what we're getting rated on. It's not on emergency calls. Acadian Ambulance is there for that. But the unique of having first responders and firemen, they can assist. Just they're not getting compensated for the medical calls, strictly fire calls. 2018-19, just recently we had another 25% budget cut across. So Broussard, Carencro, Dusson, Scott, and Youngsville went from $56,000 to $42,000. Judice and Milton, strictly volunteers now. They don't have a town. They don't have a mayor. They don't have a council. They strictly run on fundraising money. They went from 98 to 72. They also got their operations, 50,000 for operations, and the 48,000 for staffing has dropped. So those departments have really felt it, because they don't have a piggy bank, or they don't have a town that they can reach into and help offset those costs. Okay, so the proposed funding for the fire protection is what we're about to go over. Any questions? You had some questions.
I did. In one of the slides earlier, it showed that the population is approximately 221,000. Is that when the PIAL comes and does their assessment, do they use the whole parish population?
They use
the census, right?
They use the population of the unincorporated areas of the parish. And they're going to rate, each municipality gets rated on their own, and then we have a parish rating.
So each one gets rated on their own, and
basically,
they have a
when
parish.
they come in, I think there's 70,000 people
We
in
have
the
roughly
parish.
70,000 in the unincorporated areas.
They'll use 70,000 to do the rating. It's just there's 221,000
In the parish. And that was all for the last census. It's up since then.
Right.
But
So the last PIAL,
in 2013.
they only used approximately 70,000.
Correct.
Yes. Right. So when it came in 2013, and her question is, if you're watching on TV, her question was, when they came in 2013, what population number did they use to conduct the Class 5 or the 6 that we lost? It was strictly, and the answer to that was strictly the unincorporated areas, which at the time might have been 70,000. That's what they based off of. So it did not take into consideration the total parish of 221,000. They only took into consideration on the rural area.
So the land space that they used in their calculation would have only been the unincorporated area as well, and not the whole parish-wide?
Correct.
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 Yes.
It's only unincorporated.
It's only unincorporated areas when they came into radius.
Okay. Another question was, do any cities within Lafayette Parish assess a property tax millage for their fire protection?
The answer to that is no. So Scott, Broussard, Youngsville, Carencro, and Dusson do not have dedicated millages for their fire protection. They are supported by the sales tax revenue and their general fund. Now, recently I heard the city of Scott is going with a 1 cent sales tax in the city of Scott, going to the voters, And in that will include police, fire, parks, and some other things.
Was
But as-
that discussed with the Lafayette Consolidated Government sales tax?
Well, that sales tax is just for the city of
Yeah,
Scott.
I understand, but in considering that Lafayette Parish needed more fire protection, was a sales tax.
Sales tax was considered, but when you talk of sales tax, I cannot do a sales tax in the city of Scott. Right. For the unincorporated areas, it is. We looked into it. The problem with that is you don't have enough businesses, and it's not sustainable, and it's too volatile, but there wasn't enough business to do anything, and we would have had to raise the sales tax up way more than a penny, and then you would have been at the state cap. Then you would have had to go to the state and ask. So we did consider sales tax. We did consider multiple things. Unfortunately, there's just not many options where the other towns. Now, if Parish General Fund was healthy and it was like it used to be, then this meeting, this televised deal, this dedicated tax or this rural fire district, we would not be having that discussion. Because the truth is, if the Parish General Fund was sustainable and was doing what it needed to do and had enough money to meet the mandates and we had enough money left over, then as a government, we were going to continue to do what we had. We didn't need any money. But we rode that horse all the way, and it doesn't have any more left.
Now that the Lafayette Rural Fire District has been created, if the millage proposal doesn't pass, what happens to that?
If the millage does not pass, then you just basically have a rural fire district with no funding. That's it. So you had to have the fire district map and the district approved before you could even start going with a tax or with any type of funding. You had to create the district first to outline it, and then you go for the proposed funding. That's how it works.
I just had a thought with, if we have, how many total volunteer fire departments is it?
Seven total fire volunteers.
But also the Lafayette City,
They do respond.
They do respond.
So there's 8 departments in the parish.
8 departments in the parish, but most of them 7 volunteers
And 1 paid.
and 1 paid.
1 fully paid.
so for the 70,000 population, that's just considered not adequate.
Right. So another question brought up was, well, why didn't we just do a sales tax across the parish for fire protection? Sounds great. I thought about it, but why would the folks in Scott, Broussard, and them want to pay again? They're already paying taxes into their general fund that is paying for the fire department. So if you do another sales tax on top of that, they're paying twice. And they're paying twice for people, they're paying twice for protection, but they're not the ones that need the protection. It's the unincorporated area that needs the protection. So it's kind of unfair to go and ask all of these small towns who have their fire departments, who have their general fund working right, they have their ducks in a row to say, hey, we need you to help pay a sales tax to help pay for the unincorporated area. They get, you know what I'm saying? They get double hit. So it really falls on the back of the unincorporated area. If the voters say, no, we're good, we'll take a class 6 or 7, then that's what it's going to be. Unfortunately, the cost of living is going to increase, business insurance is going to go up, and you are potentially not going to have the response, because those towns, when they dig enough in their own pockets and get in the red with no reimbursement, no consideration for the services they do, they might not respond. And we had one municipality a year and a half ago didn't respond due to that same stuff that we're talking here. So to answer your question, it's based on 70,000 people PIL looks at for the parish fire rating. And a sales tax was considered, but there wasn't enough revenue business to generate the 3.9 that's needed. So that's why that didn't work. A parish-wide fire protection didn't work because the other municipalities are already paying for their funding through the general fund, their sales tax revenue. They don't need a dedicated tax. The truth is the parish never needed this dedicated tax because our parish general fund was kind of healthy. But again, through annexation, lack of sales tax revenue, lack of business, our income has decreased, but our expenses have increased. So it's kind of like as they took the business and the money, we kept getting the bill, but we didn't have the money to pay it, you know, and that's the best analogy I can use is at the end of the day, income has shrunk, expenses have increased, demand for fire protection has increased, and the citizens in the unincorporated area are going to be affected. A yes vote, they might pay $200 a year in taxes, but they might get their homeowners insurance down by 32% if we get to a class 4. You know, so it's what you want to pay. If you ask me personally, I would pay the $200 before I'd pay $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 in insurance, you know, and have somebody respond. Because keep in mind, when you're paying a higher insurance premium, that doesn't mean that the insurance company is going to come put out your fire. You know, it relies on the public. So hopefully that answers some of the main questions to make sure the public understands all the fire protection for years have been funded out of the parish general fund. There was never a dedicated millage. We didn't need one. Just like the small towns, they don't need that. They have enough sales tax business. That's what their government's doing. They're paying their fire department and police needs out of the general fund. Now, who's to say that at some point if something slowed up in one of those towns, they may have to be looking at the same thing, you know? Who knows? But the other big thing was the millage will create $3.9 million. Okay? Here's where we're going to show you what our plan is to do with the $3.9 million. Also, in regards to PIL, it's important that you note that they come in every 5 years. Okay? So if this doesn't pass, then potentially we will be stuck with our higher insurance rates for the next 5 years. Okay? If it does pass, we're still going to be at a class 6. So for 1 year, the residents are going to be at a class 6 because we did nothing from 2013 to 15, and they're coming rate us. So we're already barely made a 5. We're going to be in the 6. If it does pass, we have to wait a whole nother year to collect that money. But if it passes with the plan that's here, we can call PIL back and say, hey, can you come back and reconsider in a year and now re-rate us? And as long as we have enough to justify them to come back, then they will do that. And if this passes, then that allows us potentially, without a doubt, to have them come back, and then we can go back from a 6 back to a 5 and potentially get to a 4. But if we miss the boat and it doesn't pass, we're stuck with higher insurance rates for 5 years. It does pass, we're going to pay an increase for 1 year. We call them back in, hey, we got this new millage, we got this new fire district, this is where the money's going. Boom. Then we can come back and save our income. The other thing is, who's going to be in charge of this money? That should be the next question. It's not going to be administration. So currently, under the current format of LCG, the rural fire district board of directors is the 9 council members. I'm actively sitting in right now as the chairman of the fire district, and Councilman Jay Castile is the treasurer. So right now, if it were to pass, all of those departments in the parish, rural district, they have to report to the board, which is the 9 council members. We hold them accountable. We make sure they come in front of the council once a month to talk about what they got going, where they at, where the money's being spent. For budget purposes, they have to come to us. So there's no one in Scott, Dussault, Karen Crow. Those fire chiefs can't just run around with $3.9 million and put it where they want. They have to come and be responsible to us, the council, and us 9 members right now currently make up the fire district. Part B, on December 8th, if the public votes to separate the 2 councils, then this rural fire district millage would fall under the new parish council of 5 members. So then the 5 parish council members would then be the acting board of directors. Okay, so if it doesn't pass the split of the council, then, and the tax passes, then 9 of us are in charge. If the tax passes and the council splits, then it goes to the parish side. The city of Lafayette would not be involved. It'd be the new parish council. And that's important to know because a lot of people don't know what's going to happen with the split. Okay, so part of the $3.9 million, here's where it goes. Operations, $350,000 annually a year to all, will be broken down between all 7 departments. Insurance, each one will get $30,000. For maintenance and repairs, they will each get $20,000. So insurance alone is more than $30,000, but that'll help them get started. Maintenance and repairs, again, that's $20,000 each. So $350 total for operations, divided by 7, and the breakdown is $210 in insurance, and maintenance and repairs about $140,000, the budget for that. On the equipment side, $480,000, and that is divided among 8 departments. That's the part where Lafayette comes into play. It's 7 volunteer departments with the city of Lafayette as one funded department that makes up 8. They'll stipend for 2 parish pumpers and 1 tanker to keep up with the usage, as well as the 8 departments with replacement costs. And they'll do $20,000 per unit, resulting in $60,000 per department. So the main thing that we're lacking when they come in is response, personnel, and equipment. So operations is going to help. Equipment is definitely needed. We have out-of-date equipment. Tanker trucks, we need tanker trucks. They're breaking down. One repair was around $8,000. So it gets costly to run these trucks back and forth. Then we're going to do something here with response, anywhere from $360,000 to $410,000 among all 8 departments. But this will be based on fire calls only, like everything we've been talking, fire calls only. So someone that runs between 200 and 500 calls a year will get $50,000. Someone between 500 and 700 will get $60,000. 700 or more is $70,000. And because of Lafayette and what they do for the unincorporated areas around Brill Bridge, what they do for the pockets, and what they have done over the years, we've cut their budget to help out the volunteers. They would get roughly an $80,000 flat rate due to the inability to actually track the parish calls, because they come out and respond. Let me tell you, the other night we had a town hall meeting, and someone said, well, why you don't break these calls up? Why you lump them between 2 and 500 and 500 and 700? It's because if you broke them down to 100, 200, 300, when it's going to get close, you know, they had 299 calls. Oh, let me go hurry up and respond that extra call so I can get another $10,000. So we don't want to do that. We want to be honest. Honestly, Broussard, Youngsville, Carencro, and Dussault run between 200 and 500 calls. Scott is currently the only one that is 500 or more. So these 2 items are really good. If we get it 700 calls or more, my God, we must have a fire burning like in California. We're in a crisis. Okay, it's a very sad day. But we're going to help break it down, and those departments that respond, because again, the rating company wants to see people responding. So it's kind of an incentive to say, hey, the more calls you respond to and you do your job, then you're going to get compensated for it. Paid personnel, that is the biggest cost. Out of 3.9 million, 1.2 of it is strictly paid personnel. It's 24-hour coverages, $16 an hour a day for part-time personnel. The great thing is the part-time personnel, most of them already have training, so we get credit for the training, and it's going to make sure that we have someone to respond during the day and at night. So Broussard will get 1, Carencro will get 1, Dussault gets 1, Scott gets 1, Youngsville 1. Judice and Milton, because they strictly volunteers, will get each of 2. So out of that 1.2 million, that's the breakdown. Milton and Judice will get $280,000 a year to get 2 part-timers. And though it's not just 2 people, you can rotate that within 7 or 8 other part-timers. But that's how you're able to fill the station. Support personnel, $80,000, and that's basically nothing's really changed. We've been funding that department, and that's additional personnel transferred. Communications officer, $30,000, arson investigator, $30,000, and the clerk for $20,000. So that's, transferred. That's half the budget and the salary of the personnel that we're currently paying now. So support personnel will take care of that. That's going to be, again, communication officer, arson investigator, and a clerk. That makes up the $80,000. Paid on call, $350,000 total between the 7 volunteer fire departments. That's based on response. Some departments would not use this much, while others may use more. It's not. It's to get people to respond, and be paid on call. So we base 50,000 for budget figures, but we'll have a program that will be based on response parish-wide. Money will be in an account and paid quarterly to the department for response during that quarter. So if you're not responding, you're not getting the money. And as a council member or chairman, I can say, hey, let me see the paperwork. Let me see which departments is responding. Make sure the money is being allocated where it needs to go. If you're responding and you volunteers, it gives them another incentive to answer the phone and respond to the fire. If they're responding, they're going to get compensated. But it's not an automatic that all of them are going to get that money. It's only those that are going to respond. The goal is to have everybody responding. Parish association, that's the fees. Tower fees, $6,000. Insurance fees, maintenance on parish wide Cascade trailer, $9,000. So that's a total of $15,000 there. So just among that, the total package is around $2.9 million for the entire parish. You got a question? Go ahead.
I do. The paid on-call, that's incentive in addition to the 0 to 200 response. You get 40,000, 200 to 500, you get 50,000. This paid on-call is in addition to that.
It's an addition.
It's an addition.
That's money that will go to their volunteers as a
The paid on,
incentive.
yeah, the paid on call is going to be,
respond to calls.
yes.
Paid on-call is still volunteer.
Paid on call for volunteers.
The incentive of the 0 to 200,
It's for the
40,000
department.
would
That's
be
the
for the
department's
department.
operating.
Right. So the response will be for the departments. And like Brian just clarified, the paid on call is money set aside for to pay for the volunteers, for those departments to incentivize the paid on call people to respond. So it's two. So somebody's going to say, well, you got 2.9. Why we got $1 million left over? And Brian alluded to it earlier. PIL is the one who makes the rule. So in 5 years from now, they can come in and say, well, you need to have this and this and this to keep your class. So what we didn't want to do is sell ourselves short. We wanted a plan that would be self-sufficient and one that would take care of the unincorporated area and the fire district for forever, okay? Where we don't have to come back to our citizens. We don't, because we're trying to do it right the first time. So the $1 million left over leaves us room for capital. It also gives us the opportunity to bond out. So for every $1 million you have saved, you can bond out 10 million, okay? So what do we know out of those 2013 recommendations that we definitely need to consider? A new fire station. Where's that new fire station? It won't be in the municipality of Scott, Broussard, Youngsville. It will not go in that small town. It won't go in the city of Lafayette. That money would be spent for the rural area, our district, and typically based upon the calls, somewhere between Scott and Austin area is where a lot of those calls get. So Austin, so we're either looking for a parish guy that has a bunch of land and wants to donate to the parish so we can have a site, or we have to use the money that's left over. But we're going to be very smart with that money because you want to have a fund balance, and you want to be able to have capital, and you want to be able to go out and bond, and you want to get that fire station, the land either paid for or donated. Then you got to build it. Then you got the apparatus. You got the personnel, the trucks, the tanker. I mean, it's going to take a lot. Do I think it's needed? Absolutely. That's what's well, that is what was recommended, and I think it's definitely doable, and I think it can happen. We just have to plan right and be smart. So that's everything in a nutshell. But here's another question that really you need to think about, because people are going to say, well, you're creating a surplus. No, we're not creating a surplus. Well, what happens in the future when I get annexed into the city of Scott? And I'm using Scott as an example. It could be Broussard, Youngsville, whatever. Well, what happens is that resident that was paying this new proposed tax would no longer pay that tax. They would be then subject to whatever that municipality's fire class rating is. Or they would be subject to whatever taxes that town wants to pass for fire protection. So what happens is it becomes a wash. You're not contributing to that $3.9 million anymore, but we're also not responsible to have to serve the services in that area. So it becomes a wash. So as time evolves, the millage will stay the same, but the funding can come down because you might not have as many people in the unincorporated area in the future. but you don't have to worry. That doesn't mean that your services, that you're not going to have service. Those that are still paying into the millage are always going to have service. Those that are getting out will be subject to whatever town they're going to. So you might have the same millage, less money, but it's also less service for the fire department. So the money, it'll stay equal. It'll stay consistent. You should never have to come back for additional money. You know, and eventually if everybody were to annex everything, which I don't think that's going to happen, then you wouldn't have, then it would go away. But I think you're always going to have a rural fire district, and I think you're going to have a millage. So that answers one of the questions that some people have called me and said, well, what happens when I get annexed? Well, you're just going to go to the whatever town rating they have. What happens to the money? The money's going to come down. The service is going to come down. It's not needed. It's a wash. The other thing someone had mentioned as a thought, an idea was, why is it 10 mills? That's more. That's the largest millage in the history of Lafayette Parish. We're going to pay more millage for fire protection in the unincorporated area than we pay for drainage. Yep, you are. Why? Because you only have 70,000 people to try to generate $3.9 million to keep your class rating. So if this was a parish-wide millage, it wouldn't be 10 mills. It would be a lot less. But you need 10 mills in order to generate the revenue to protect that area, because you, again, you don't have the sales tax revenue to depend on. You only have the millage. So 70,000 people takes 10 mills to equal that. We have looked through other parishes and found out what they were doing. A lot of them have a rooftop tax, or they have some type of dedicated millage. A lot of them were a little higher than 10. Some of them were 12. Some of them were 11. We feel that 10 mills is going to take us into the future and beyond and protect our citizens. That's why the 10 mills is 10 mills. It's not 5 or 2, because that wouldn't generate the 3.9 that PIL said you would need in order to maintain a 5 or get to a 4. So that's why it's that high. And that's why it's a property tax. It's not a sales tax, because you still have the business to generate it. So those are some things I'm just thinking out loud, that some good questions that people had called or emailed or chatted. Is there anything else, Brian, that you're thinking that offhand? 10 mills, unincorporated area only, fire district only. The people that are going to oversee the funding is the current 9-member council, or potentially could be the new 5 parish council. That's I think that's everything in a nutshell. Again, we have a meeting coming up Wednesday night in Judice that will conduct the last meeting, but we might do some more just right before December 8th. But again, it's so important that everybody gets this presentation. They get the facts. I'm a council member that lives in an unincorporated area, so this is not something that I won't be affected by. I will be affected by it dearly. And I just want the people in unincorporated areas to be educated, ask questions, know where the money's going, what it's being used for, and make an educated vote. And we have to live with the consequences of a yes vote or a no vote. But my main thing as an elected official is to make sure that if it's something that's going to affect my community and affect the citizens in their wallet, then I think they need to cast their own vote. And I think they need to weigh in as long as they get the facts. We don't want anybody going to vote without understanding how it operates, how did we get to where we at. And at the end of the day, we did consider everything. We considered sales tax. We considered, why 10 mills? Matter of fact, when we started, I thought it was going to be 7.6 mills. But then when we ran the numbers and what we need that personnel. We need that training. All of those gets those points where we need to be. Their goal as the Fire Association, my goal as a constituent in an unincorporated area and a taxpayer, is I want to get to a class 4. I want to enjoy a 32% savings on my homeowner's insurance. I want the unincorporated area to be a place of the same quality of life. Used to live in an unincorporated area because it was cheaper. But you don't get the same services. So we're at a point that if we want the services and we want a better quality of life, we're going to have to pay for it because we don't have the revenue to continue doing what all the other towns have benefited, which is sales tax revenue. So that's all I have to say. I want to thank Brian. I want to thank all of the firemen out there and all of the chiefs and for doing what they do every day, putting their life at risk. And many times they come in the unincorporated area, one fireman on a truck, and they have to wait until other people can get there before they can put that fire out. And so a lot of times they risk their lives. And even though they're not supposed to respond to that fire, they can't help it because that's in their blood to respond. So it puts their lives at risk, puts their spouses at risk, and we just want to do the right thing. So, all right, that's all I have. Do you have any other questions?